The battlecruiser emerged from hyperspace like a predator breaking through water. Its dark hull reflected no light, and weapons bristled from every surface. Inside the command bridge, Commander Vextor stood perfectly still. His scales, the color of deep ocean water, shifted as he studied the blue planet below. Earth floated in space, unaware of the danger above. Cities sparkled on the night side of the planet. Satellites orbited in lazy circles. The humans living there had no idea that their world had just become a target. Lieutenant Kresh approached the commander. His mandibles clicked as he spoke. "The scans are complete, Commander. 8 billion inhabitants. Their technology is primitive. They have basic nuclear weapons and simple spacecraft that can barely reach their own moon." Vextor nodded slowly. The Krexhai Empire needed new resources. Their own worlds were becoming crowded. For 300 years, they had conquered planet after planet. Each victory made them stronger. Each conquered species became workers for the Empire or simply disappeared. It was the way of things in the galaxy. The strong survived. The weak served or perished. Their military forces? Vextor asked. "Scattered and divided," Kresh reported. "They still fight among themselves, different nations with different armies. They would fall within days, perhaps hours." The bridge crew made sounds of approval. An easy conquest meant glory without much risk. Glory meant promotion. Promotion meant better territories to rule. Every warrior on the ship could already taste victory. Vextor turned to his tactical officer. "Begin invasion protocols. Mark landing zones near their major cities. We will strike simultaneously across the planet. They won't have time to organize any defense." The tactical officer's fingers flew over his console. Target markers appeared on the image of Earth. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing. All the major centers of human civilization were marked for the first wave. Then something unexpected happened. Every screen on the bridge flashed white. Alarms that had never sounded before began wailing. The ship's artificial intelligence spoke in a voice filled with what sounded like fear. "Unknown energy signature detected. Source unknown. Power levels beyond measurement capabilities." A figure materialized in the center of the bridge. It wasn't solid like a normal being. It shifted and flowed, sometimes appearing as pure light, sometimes as shadow. When it spoke, every being on the bridge heard it in perfect Krexhai, though its mouth, if it had a mouth, never moved. "Attention, vessel of the Krexhai Empire. I am a messenger of the Council of Ancients. The species inhabiting this system is under Galactic Preservation Order 779. Any hostile action against humans will result in immediate intervention." The bridge fell silent. Every warrior stood frozen. The Council of Ancients was a legend, a story told to young Krexhai to make them behave. They were supposed to be the first civilization in the galaxy, beings who had evolved beyond physical form, millions of years ago. Most believed they were myths. Vextor found his voice first. "You claim to represent the ancients? They are stories for children." The figure's form solidified slightly, taking a shape that hurt to look at directly. "Your belief is not required. Only your compliance. Humans are designated as off-limits. You will withdraw immediately." "Why?" Vextor demanded. His warrior's pride wouldn't let him retreat without understanding. "They are primitive. They offer nothing to the galaxy." "That is not for you to judge," the figure replied. "You have been warned. Database markers have been placed in your ship's computer. Any Krexhai vessel that approaches Earth with hostile intent will trigger our response. Consider carefully before you proceed." The figure vanished. The alarm stopped. The bridge lights returned to normal, but nobody moved for a long moment. Kresh was the first to speak. "Commander, should we continue with the invasion?" Vextor looked at the blue planet below. Every instinct told him to attack. The Krexhai Empire had never retreated from a conquest, but something about that figure, about the power it had displayed by appearing on their bridge despite all their shields and defenses, made him pause. "No," he said finally. "We return to the Empire. The War Council must know about this. Several. Warriors looked disappointed, but none challenged the decision. They had all felt the power of that being. If that was just a messenger, what would the Council of Ancients themselves be capable of? As the battlecruiser turned away from Earth, Vextor gave one last order. Deploy a warning beacon. Let any HFY ship that comes here know what we encountered. Down on Earth, the night continued peacefully. In Hawaii, astronomer Lisa Park was working late at the observatory. She loved these quiet hours when most of the world was asleep. The universe felt closer somehow, more personal. She was tracking an asteroid when something strange appeared on her screen. A massive object had appeared near Neptune, stayed for exactly 17 minutes, then vanished. It was too large to be a natural object, and it had moved in ways that defied physics as she understood them. Lisa rubbed her tired eyes and looked again. The data was still there. She ran diagnostics on the equipment. Everything was working perfectly. She had detected something that shouldn't exist. She saved all the data and made backup copies. Then she did something she had never done before. Instead of reporting it immediately, she kept it to herself. Something told her this was important but also dangerous. The object had left, and that was what mattered. Lisa didn't know that she had just witnessed humanity's first contact with alien life. She didn't know that her entire species had come within minutes of invasion and possible extinction. She only knew that something extraordinary had happened, and the universe had just become a much more mysterious place. Back on the HFY battlecruiser, Vextor stood alone in his quarters. He called up the scan data of Earth on his personal display. Such a small world, such a young species. What made them special enough to warrant protection from beings of legend? He thought about the human cities, their primitive spacecraft, their divided nations. They reminded him of the HFY themselves, thousands of years ago, before they had become conquerors, before they had forgotten any other way to live. The commander saved the scan data in his personal files. Something told him this wasn't over. The War Council would not accept this easily. The generals would argue that one warning from a mysterious being wasn't enough to stop the mighty HFY Empire. Vextor feared they were right, and he feared even more what would happen if they tested the warning. He had felt the power of that messenger. It was like standing next to a star, feeling its heat and knowing it could burn you to nothing in an instant. The hyperspace jump engaged, and the battlecruiser disappeared from Earth's system. The warning beacon remained, broadcasting its message to any HFY ship that might approach. Humans are off limits. Council of Ancients protection confirmed. Approach at your own risk. On Earth, Lisa Park finally went home as the sun began to rise. She didn't mention the anomaly to her colleagues. Some secrets she felt were better kept quiet, at least for now. The world woke up to another normal day. People went to work, children went to school, and life continued as it always had. Nobody knew that they had been judged worthy of protection by beings beyond their comprehension. Nobody knew that their small blue world had just become the most important planet in the galaxy. And in the vast darkness between stars, other eyes were watching. The Council of Ancients had made their warning. Now they would wait to see if it would be heeded. The future of more than just humanity depended on what happened next. 3 months had passed since the warning. In the great war chamber of the HFY Empire, arguments had raged every day. The circular room was carved from black stone, and trophies from 100 conquered worlds lined the walls. Skulls, weapons, and flags from dead civilizations served as reminders of HFY power. General Zarkon stood at the center, his massive form towering over the other officers. His armor bore the scars of 1,000 battles. His voice boomed across the chamber. "We are warriors, we are conquerors, and now we cower because of one warning from beings that probably don't even exist?" Commander Vextor tried to remain calm. He had told this story many times. "I was there, General. The power was real. The messenger appeared through our shields like they were nothing." "One trick," Zarkon spat. "Perhaps the humans have allies we don't know about. Perhaps it was technology, not these mythical ancients." The Other officers murmured among themselves. Fear and pride warred in their hearts. None wanted to appear weak, but all had heard Vextor's report. He was known as an honest warrior, not given to exaggeration. Minister Hexara, old and covered in ceremonial scars, spoke from her seat. "What do you propose, General?" Zarkon's teeth showed in what might have been a smile. "A test. We send a small force, not an invasion, just a raid. 50 warriors, 1 stealth ship. They land quietly, take some humans for study, and leave. If these ancients are real, surely they will respond. If nothing happens, we know the warning was false." The chamber fell silent. It was a clever plan. Risk only 50 warriors to test if the threat was real. The Empire could afford to lose 50 warriors if things went wrong. Vextor felt cold despite the warm air. "General, the warning was clear. Any hostile action will result in intervention," Zarkon finished. "Yes, we heard. But what is intervention? Will they destroy our ship? Send another warning? We must know our enemy's strength before we can make decisions." The War Council voted. Despite Vextor's protest, the majority agreed with Zarkon. The test would proceed. Captain Mortis was chosen to lead the mission. He was young, ambitious, and completely loyal to Zarkon. His stealth corvette, the Silent Blade, was the newest in the fleet. It could slip past any detection system the primitive humans possessed. The ship dropped out of hyperspace far from Earth, approaching slowly and carefully. They scanned for any sign of the ancients. Nothing. Space was empty and quiet. They entered Earth's atmosphere over Montana, where population was sparse. The ship's cloaking field held perfectly. No human technology detected them. They landed in a field 40 miles from the nearest town, a place called Cedar Ridge. Night had fallen. Captain Mortis led his warriors from the ship. They moved like shadows across the grass. Their armor adjusted its color to match the surroundings. Their weapons were set to stun. The orders were clear. Capture, don't kill. They needed living specimens. Jake Coleman couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. He had lived on this ranch his whole life, and he knew every sound the night made. Tonight was different. Too quiet. Even the coyotes were silent. He got dressed and grabbed his rifle. His grandfather's rifle, actually. Jake didn't know why he took it. What good would an old hunting rifle do against whatever was making him nervous? But its weight felt comforting in his hands. The motion sensors he used to track predators near his cattle started going off. One by one, lights blinked on his monitor. Something big was moving through his south field. Several somethings. Jake stepped out onto his porch. The moon was full, casting silver light across his land. At first he saw nothing. Then shadows moved where shadows shouldn't be. His breath caught in his throat. They were tall, maybe 8 feet. They moved with a fluid grace that no human could match. As his eyes adjusted, he could make out details, armor that seemed to shift and change, 4 arms instead of 2, faces that were definitely not human. Jake's mind tried to make sense of what he was seeing. Aliens. Actual aliens were walking through his field. Part of him wanted to run. Part wanted to hide. But this was his land, his home. "Stop right there," he called out, raising his rifle. The beings stopped. One of them, larger than the others, stepped forward. It spoke, and somehow Jake understood even though the words were wrong. "Human, you will come with us. Resistance will result in termination." "I don't think so," Jake said. His finger found the trigger. The air between them suddenly tore apart. It was like reality itself was ripping. Light poured through the tear, but it wasn't normal light. It was every color and no color at the same time. Jake's eyes watered just looking at it. Beings stepped through the tear. No, that wasn't right. They didn't step. They simply were suddenly there. Jake couldn't focus on them properly. One moment, they looked solid. The next, they were made of light, then shadow, then something his mind couldn't process. One of them spoke, and Jake heard it not with his ears but inside his head. "You were warned." Captain Mortis and his warriors stood frozen. Their weapons wouldn't respond. Their armor had locked in place. They couldn't even speak. The being that had spoken moved toward them. As it got closer, Jake could see it better, though see wasn't really the right word. It was more like his brain was being given information about something that didn't quite exist in normal space. "You have violated the covenant," the being said. "The humans are under our protection." Mortis managed to force words through his locked jaw. "Why? They are nothing. Primitive. Weak." The being turned its attention to the captain. Jake felt the weight of that gaze pass over him and shuddered. It was like being looked at by a mountain or an ocean, something so vast that your own existence felt tiny in comparison. "Your understanding is limited," the being said. "But you will learn." The world changed. Jake found himself standing in a place that wasn't a place. Stars wheeled overhead, but they were too close. Ground existed under his feet, but it was transparent. The HFY warriors were there too, still frozen. The beings of light surrounded them all. "Observe," the being commanded. Images flowed around them. Jake saw things that hadn't happened yet. Humans in ships traveling between stars. Humans standing between two alien races that were about to destroy each other, somehow making peace. Humans giving their lives to save species they had never met before. He saw darker things too. Humans at war, cities burning, weapons that could crack planets, but always, humans choosing to step back from the edge, choosing to be better. "They are unique," the being explained. "In all the galaxy, no other species balances so perfectly on the edge between creation and destruction. They have the capacity for both ultimate evil and ultimate good, and more often than not, they choose good." "That's impossible," Mortis protested. "No species can be that important." The being showed them more. A dying civilization, their sun going nova. Human ships arriving not to conquer but to evacuate. Humans working themselves to death to save strangers. No profit in it, no gain, just because it was right. Another scene. Humans finding a primitive species about to be enslaved. The humans had no weapons that could match the slavers. So they stood between the slavers and their prey, daring them to fire. The slavers, confused by this display, retreated rather than slaughter the humans. "They will become the conscience of the galaxy," the being said. "The voice that says this is wrong when everyone else remains silent. The hand extended in friendship when others would make fists. This is why they must be protected during their vulnerable years." Jake's head was spinning. This was too much. He was just a rancher in Montana. He wasn't prepared for cosmic destiny and galactic importance. The being seemed to sense his distress. It moved closer, and Jake felt warmth like standing in sunlight. "You are not ready to understand fully. That is acceptable. You have time to grow." The strange knot place dissolved. They were back in Jake's field. The HFY warriors could move again, but their weapons were gone. Dissolved into dust. "Return to your empire," the being commanded. "Tell them what you have seen. Tell them that the next violation will not be met with words." Captain Mortis looked at his warriors, then at Jake, then at the beings of light. His pride warred with his fear. Fear won. "We're leaving," he ordered his troops. As they walked back toward their ship, Mortis stopped and turned to Jake. "Human, you don't know how fortunate you are. My people would have taken your world in days. You would have been slaves or dead." Jake found his voice. "Maybe. Or maybe we would have surprised you." Mortis made a sound that might have been laughter. "Perhaps. The ancients seemed to think so." The HFY departed. Their ship rose silently into the night sky and vanished. The beings of light began to fade. The one who had spoken turned to Jake one last time. "You will not remember all of this clearly. It will seem like a dream, but you will remember enough. Humanity must grow on its own, make its own choices. We only ensure you have the chance to do so." "Wait," Jake called out. "Why me? Why here?" "Because," the being said as it faded, "you chose to stand when you could have run. That is very human, very precious. Guard that courage, Jake Coleman. Your species will need it." They were gone. Jake stood alone in his field, rifle still in his hands. Already the details were becoming fuzzy, like trying to remember a dream after waking. But the core remained. Aliens had come. Other aliens had protected Earth. Humanity was important somehow. The revelation spread through the Krexhai Empire like wildfire. Captain Mortis and his warriors had returned with impossible stories. The ancients were real. They protected the humans. But more disturbing were the visions they had been shown. Visions of humanity's future. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Thaxnel sat on his throne of conquered worlds. Each piece of his seat came from a different fallen civilization. He had ruled for 200 years, and under his claw, the empire had doubled in size. Now his generals came to him with talk of retreat. "Show me," he commanded. The court's memory keeper stepped forward. She placed her tendrils on Captain Mortis's head and projected his memories for all to see. The entire court watched as beings of light stopped the raid. They saw the visions of humanity's future. They felt the power of the ancients. When it was over, silence filled the throne room. The Emperor's scales had gone pale, a sign of deep thought or deep fear. "One small planet," he said finally. "One primitive species. And for them, the ancients revealed themselves after millions of years of silence." General Zarkon stepped forward. "My Emperor, I believe we should test them further. The ancients showed visions, but visions can lie. We need facts." "What do you propose?" the Emperor asked. "We study them from afar. Learn their weaknesses. The ancients said we cannot harm them, but they said nothing about watching them." It was a clever interpretation of the warning. The Emperor approved the plan. Stealth observation posts were established at the edge of Earth's solar system. The Krexhai would watch and wait. On Earth, strange things had started happening. Not invasions or attacks, but small oddities that made the news. Lights in the sky that didn't match any aircraft. Radio signals from space that lasted just long enough to be noticed before disappearing. Lisa Park, still working at her observatory in Hawaii, noticed patterns in these anomalies. She had started a private database after the incident 3 months ago. Each strange observation was carefully logged. The patterns were becoming clear. Something was watching Earth. Lisa reached out carefully to colleagues around the world. She found others who had noticed the same patterns. They formed an informal network sharing data quietly. They called themselves the Watchers, though it was really just a group chat where astronomers compared notes. One night, Lisa detected something different. A message hidden in cosmic background radiation. It was subtle, so subtle that only someone looking for it would notice. The message was simple. You are not alone. You are watched. You are protected. She stared at her screen for a long time. Then she did something that would change everything. She replied. Using the observatory's most powerful transmitter, she sent a response into space. We know, we are grateful, we are ready to learn. The response came immediately. Not through her equipment, but in her mind. The voice was warm, ancient, and infinitely patient. Lisa Park, you speak for yourself, not your species. But we hear you. Lisa gasped and looked around. She was alone in the observatory. Who are you? We are what your mythology calls angels, what others call the ancients. We are the first. We tend the garden of consciousness in the galaxy. Why protect us? Lisa asked. What makes us special? Images flooded her mind. She saw the galaxy as the ancients saw it. Thousands of intelligent species, each locked in their own patterns. The warrior races who knew only conquest. The builders who created but never questioned why. The thinkers who pondered but never acted. And then humans. Chaotic. Unpredictable. Capable of breathtaking cruelty and boundless compassion, sometimes in the same moment. Humans who could hold contradictions in their minds without breaking. Who could believe in both science and wonder. Who could kill and heal with equal skill. You are the random element, the voice explained. The variable that changes every equation. Without you, the galaxy stagnates. With you, it evolves. But we're not ready, Lisa protested. We still fight among ourselves. We still have poverty, injustice, war. Yes. And that is part of your value. You struggle with these things. Other races have eliminated such problems by eliminating choice, emotion, or individuality. You refuse to take those paths. You insist on remaining messy, complicated human. The presence showed her more. A galactic civilization millions of years in the future. Species working together in harmony. And at the center, humans. Not as rulers, but as mediators. The ones who could understand everyone because they contained elements of everyone. This is just one possible future, the voice said. Nothing is certain, but the probability is high enough that you must be protected until you can protect yourselves. The ones who tried to invade us, Lisa asked. The HFY, will they try again? They watch you now. They test our resolve. Soon they will make a choice that will determine their fate as well as yours. The presence began to fade. Lisa reached out desperately. Wait, should I tell others? Should I warn Earth? Tell those who will believe. Prepare those who will listen, but do not create panic. Humanity must come to the stars by choice, not fear. Lisa was alone again. She looked at her equipment, at the data she had collected. She thought about the world outside, going about its normal business. How could she possibly explain what she had learned? She started carefully. She wrote a paper about the possibility of extraterrestrial observation. She framed it as theory, not fact. But she included all her data. Those who wanted to see the truth could find it. Meanwhile, Jake Coleman had started having dreams. Dreams of the night in his field. The details were fuzzy, but the feeling remained. They were being watched. They were being protected. And somehow that protection wouldn't last forever. He started preparing. He didn't know for what exactly, but he reinforced his ranch. He stockpiled supplies. He reached out to neighbors, building a network of people who could rely on each other if things went bad. They thought he was paranoid, but they humored him. Jake had always been reliable. In space, Commander Vextor studied the human transmissions they had intercepted. He was fascinated despite himself. Their entertainment, their news, their science, it was all so varied. The HFY had art, but it was all about glory and battle. Humans made art about everything. Love, loss, hope, fear, simple moments of beauty. He watched their wars too, brutal affairs but oddly limited. They had weapons that could destroy their world, but they held back. Even in their worst moments, something stopped them from total annihilation. Commander, his lieutenant reported. General Zarkon requests your presence. Vextor found the general in the war room, surrounded by holograms of Earth. Commander, you were right to be cautious. But caution is not a strategy. The Emperor grows impatient. What does he want? Results. Either we take Earth, or we abandon it, but this watching and waiting accomplishes nothing. The ancients are a problem to be solved, not a wall to stop us. Zarkon manipulated the holograms, showing fleet positions. I have a new plan. We don't invade Earth. We simply position our entire fleet around it. Every ship we have. We make no aggressive moves, but we demonstrate our power. Let the humans see what they face. Let them choose to surrender. The ancients won't allow it, won't they? We're not harming humans, we're not invading, we're simply visiting, in force. It was bold. It was dangerous. It was exactly the kind of plan that had made the HFY Empire great, or destroyed, civilizations that challenged powers beyond them. When? Vextor asked. 3 days, every ship, every warrior. We will either claim Earth or learn exactly what the ancients will do to stop us. Vextor wanted to object, but he saw the determination in Zarkon's eyes. This would happen whether he agreed or not. I'll prepare my ship. As he left, Vextor wondered if he was about to witness the greatest triumph in HFY history, or its final mistake. Something told him it would be one or the other, with no middle ground. On Earth, Lisa Park's equipment suddenly went wild. Energy signatures were spiking all around the solar system. Something big was coming, something unprecedented. She sent alerts to her network. She tried to warn government contacts. Most dismissed her as crying wolf. But some listened. Some began to prepare. The ancients watched all of this. They had known this moment would come. The Krexhai would push. Humanity would be tested. And everyone would learn what it meant to be under their protection. The pieces were in place. The next move would change everything. 10,000 ships appeared around Earth in perfect synchronization. They didn't attack. They didn't send messages. They simply existed, surrounding the planet like a steel cage around a blue marble. Each ship was a masterpiece of destruction. Weapons powered but not aimed. Shields raised but not aggressive. In every major city on Earth, people looked up and saw them. The ships were visible even in daylight, massive shadows against the sky. Panic should have erupted. Cities should have burned in riots. Instead, something else happened. Lisa Park was in the emergency meeting room at the United Nations. She had been brought in as an advisor when her warnings proved accurate. President Amy Foster of the United States stood at the podium, addressing representatives from every nation on Earth. "We face a threat we cannot fight with conventional weapons," Foster said. Her voice was steady, though her hands gripped the podium tightly. "Our military advisors tell me that each of those ships could destroy a city. We have 10,000 of them above us." The Russian president spoke through his translator. "Then we use nuclear weapons. We have enough to..." "To what?" Foster interrupted. "Destroy maybe a dozen ships before they wipe us out? That's not a solution." The Chinese premier stood. "What do you propose? Surrender?" "I propose we do what humans do best," Foster said. "We survive, we adapt, and we stand together." Lisa watched as the room erupted in arguments. Old enemies shouted at each other. Historic grievances were brought up. It was chaos, and above them the alien fleet waited. Then something unexpected happened. The Secretary General of the United Nations, an elderly woman from Kenya named Grace Okonkwo, began to sing. It was a simple song, a children's tune about unity that was known in different versions across Africa. Her voice was soft at first, barely audible over the shouting. One by one, others fell silent. The song continued, and slowly others joined in. Different songs, different languages, but all carrying the same message. We are one people. We are Earth. In space, Commander Vextor watched this on his screens. "What are they doing?" his lieutenant asked. "I don't know," Vextor admitted. He had expected panic, surrender, or futile resistance. He hadn't expected singing. General Zarkon's image appeared on the communication screen. "All ships prepare to send our demands. They will surrender or..." He never finished the sentence. Every screen on every Krexhai ship went white. When vision returned, they found their ships were no longer under their control. Engines were frozen. Weapons were locked. Even life support was now controlled by something else. The Arbiter appeared simultaneously on every ship and in every major location on Earth. Its voice reached every human and every Krexhai at the same moment. The test begins now. On Earth, President Foster found herself in a place that wasn't quite real. She stood in a vast space filled with stars, but she could breathe. Around her were leaders from every nation, and facing them were Krexhai commanders, including General Zarkon. "What is this?" Zarkon demanded. "This is judgment," the Arbiter replied. "The Krexhai have pushed to the very edge of our warning. Humanity faces its first contact with hostile intent. Both species stand at a crossroads. The space around them changed, showing Earth surrounded by the Krexhai fleet. General Zarkon, you have 10,000 ships. You could destroy this world. President Foster, you have nuclear weapons. You could damage the fleet, though you would die in the process. Both of you have the power to choose destruction." "Then we choose," Zarkon began. "Not yet," the Arbiter interrupted. "First, you will understand each other." The space changed, again. Now they stood in the Krexhai homeworld's past. They watched as the young Krexhai civilization faced its first invasion from space. They saw cities burn, families torn apart, children crying over dead parents. "We were like you once," the Arbiter explained to the humans. "The Krexhai were peaceful builders. Then they were invaded by a race that no longer exists. They survived by becoming warriors. For 1,000 years, they have known no other way." Our scene shifted to Earth. The Krexhai watched human history unfold. Wars and peace, cruelty and kindness, the endless cycle of human struggle and triumph. "They're just like us," Vextor said quietly. "Before we forgot how to be anything but conquerors." "No," President Foster said, studying the Krexhai history. "You're like us if we let fear rule everything, if we decide that strength is all that matters." General Zarkon's scales rippled with anger. "Strength is survival. The weak perish, do they?" the Arbiter asked. The space changed once more. They saw the future. Not just one future, but many possibilities branching like a tree. In some, the Krexhai destroyed Earth and were then destroyed themselves by the ancients. In others, humanity and the Krexhai destroyed each other. But in one branch, one shining possibility, they saw something different. Humans and Krexhai working together. The Krexhai's strength protecting younger races while humans taught them there were alternatives to conquest. The galaxy flourishing, with diversity instead of being consumed by a single empire. "This is not guaranteed," the Arbiter said. "It requires choice. From both of you." They were back in the strange space, facing each other. The Arbiter addressed them all. "General Zarkon, you must choose. Withdraw and find another path, or persist and face the consequences. President Foster, you must choose. If they withdraw, will humanity seek revenge when you reach the stars, or will you remember this moment?" Back on Earth, something remarkable was happening. The panic that should have occurred never materialized. Instead, people were gathering. In New York's Times Square, in London's Trafalgar Square, in Tokyo's Shibuya Crossing, in thousands of places around the world, people stood together. They didn't have weapons. They didn't have shields. They had each other. Jake Coleman stood with his neighbors in Cedar Ridge's small town square. They watched the alien ships on a large screen someone had set up. Nobody ran, nobody hid. They stood together, waiting. "Are you scared?" a child asked Jake. "Yes," he admitted. "But being scared is okay if you don't let it control you." In her observatory, Lisa Park was connected to observatories worldwide. They were all detecting the same thing. Massive energy signatures that didn't match the Krexhai ships. The ancients were here, surrounding both Earth and the alien fleet, watching, waiting. Back in the judgment space, General Zarkon faced a decision that would define his people's future. His entire life had been about strength, conquest, victory, but he had also seen what the ancients could do. He had seen the future where his empire was erased from existence. "If we withdraw," he said slowly, "what becomes of the Krexhai? We know only war." "You learn," President Foster said, stepping forward. "Just as we're learning. Earth isn't united. We have thousands of problems. But we're trying. You could try too. You would trust us after we threatened your world?" Foster looked at the other Earth leaders, then back at Zarkon. "Trust is earned, but we can start with hope." Commander Vextor stepped forward. "General, I've been studying them. They create art about peace, not just war. They have music that serves no purpose but beauty. They choose to help others even when it costs them. Maybe we could learn from that." Zarkon looked at his commander, then at the humans, then at the Arbiter. "And if we choose wrong, if we withdraw now but return later, then you will not face humans," the Arbiter said. "You will face us, and there will be no third chance." The moment stretched into eternity. The fate of two species hung in the balance. Around Earth, 10,000 Krexhai warriors waited for orders. On Earth, 8 billion humans stood together, perhaps for the first time in their history. General Zarkon's shoulders sagged. It might have been defeat, or it might have been relief. "We withdraw. The Krexhai Empire will not harm humanity." "And when we reach the stars," Foster asked, "when humanity has ships of its own?" Zarkon looked at her. Then perhaps we will meet as equals. Perhaps we will learn what we have forgotten. The arbiter's form brightened. The choice is made. The test is passed. They were back in their respective places. General Zarkon stood on his command ship. President Foster stood at the United Nations. But both carried the memory of what had transpired. All ships, Zarkon commanded. We are leaving. Power down weapons. Set course for home. On Earth, people watched as the 10,000 ships began to move away. Not in attack formation, but in retreat. The threat was passing. But then something unexpected happened. The ships stopped. A single message was broadcast to Earth in every language. Commander Vextor's voice filled the airwaves. People of Earth, we came as conquerors. We leave as witnesses. You stood together when you should have fallen apart. You chose unity when fear should have divided you. The galaxy watches, be ready. The ships vanished into hyperspace. Earth was alone again. But not really alone. Never alone again. President Foster addressed the world. We have passed our first test. There will be others. We must be ready. Not with weapons, but with unity. Not with fear, but with hope. Around the world, the crowds that had gathered didn't disperse immediately. They stood together a little longer. Strangers who had become family in the face of annihilation. Something had changed. Humanity had glimpsed its future, and for the first time, they began to prepare for it together. 6 months had passed since the day the sky filled with ships. Earth had changed. Not in visible ways at first, but in the quiet revolution of minds and hearts. The United Nations had become something more than a debate society. For the first time in human history, they had a common purpose that transcended borders. In a secret facility in Switzerland, representatives from every major nation worked alongside their greatest scientists. Lisa Park led the astronomical division, tasked with understanding their place in a suddenly crowded galaxy. They called it Project Unity, though the name barely captured the scope of what they were attempting. We have confirmed 17 different alien civilizations from the data the HFY ships leaked, Lisa reported to the council. Most are spacefaring. 3 are older than human civilization itself. President Foster, now serving as Earth's first planetary representative, studied the data. And they all know about the protection order? It seems so. We've detected observation posts from at least 4 different species. They're watching us, but keeping their distance. In the HFY Empire, changes were happening too. Commander Vextor had been promoted, not for conquest but for wisdom. He now led a new division tasked with understanding rather than destroying. It was a radical shift that many older warriors resisted. General Zarkon himself struggled with the change. He stood before the Emperor, delivering his final report on the Earth incident. They should have been easy prey. 8 billion individuals divided by nation, religion, ideology. Yet when faced with annihilation, they stood as one. Emperor Thaxnel leaned forward on his throne. And this troubles you? It inspires me, Zarkon admitted, words he never thought he would say. For 1,000 years, we have believed unity came only through conquest. They achieved it through choice. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Perhaps it is time for the HFY to choose a different path. Commander Vextor speaks of trade instead of conquest, alliance instead of subjugation. These are foreign concepts to us. The humans could teach us, Zarkon said, if we could swallow our pride enough to learn. On Earth, Jake Coleman had become something of a local celebrity, though he tried to avoid it. The story of his encounter had leaked, despite his attempts to keep it quiet. Now his ranch hosted scientists and government officials, all trying to understand what had happened that night. I don't remember much, he told them for the 100th time, though that wasn't entirely true. He remembered the important parts, the parts about humanity's potential, the parts about choice. One evening, alone on his porch, Jake saw lights in his field again. His hand moved to where his rifle usually sat, then stopped. He didn't need it. He knew who was coming. The Arbiter appeared before him, more solid this time, almost human in appearance. Jake Coleman. You have become a symbol to your people. I didn't ask for that, Jake replied. No, but symbols are not chosen. They emerge from moments of truth. Your moment of standing when you could have run has been remembered. Why are you here? Jake asked. To deliver a message. Humanity has passed its first test, but greater challenges await. The galaxy has noticed you now. Some will come as friends, others as tests, and some as threats we cannot prevent. I thought we were protected. From extinction, yes. From challenge, no. Growth requires struggle. But you will not struggle alone. The Arbiter gestured, and the air shimmered. Jake saw ships approaching Earth. Not warships, but vessels of exploration and trade. He saw humans and aliens working together, sometimes failing, sometimes succeeding, always learning. This is beginning, the Arbiter said. In 73 of your years, first contact will officially occur. A race called the Threen will arrive seeking trade. They are peaceful but shrewd. How humanity handles them will determine much. 73 years? I'll be dead by then. You will. But what you and others do now will echo through those years. The children watching the sky tonight will be the ones who greet the Threen. What will you teach them? Jake thought about that. To be strong but kind. To be careful but hopeful. To remember that we're all in this together. The Arbiter's form seemed to smile, though it had no real face. That is why you are protected. Not for what you are, but for what you choose to become. In deep space, a gathering was taking place. Representatives from dozens of civilizations met in neutral territory, a space station older than most of their races. They had come to discuss the humans. The Vreen delegate, a crystalline being that communicated through harmonics, chimed its opinion. They are chaotic, unpredictable. They could destabilize everything. The Joran ambassador, aquatic and ancient, bubbled its response. Or they could solve problems we have ignored for millennia. Their approach to conflict resolution is unique. Commander. Vextor was there, representing the Krexhai. It was unprecedented for his warrior race to attend a peaceful gathering. They stood united against 10,000 warships without firing a shot. They turned certain destruction into an opportunity for growth. We could all learn from that. An ancient AI, representing a long-dead biological race, projected data into the center of the gathering. Statistical analysis suggests human integration into galactic society has an 84.7% chance of causing significant disruption. And the remaining percentage? Someone asked. 15.3% chance of revolutionary advancement for all species. Those are not comfortable odds, the Vreen delegate chimed. Comfort has never driven evolution, Vextor said. The humans understand this. They could have destroyed themselves 100 times over. They chose not to. They could have surrendered. To us. They chose to stand. Every choice they make seems impossible until they make it. The debate continued for days. In the end, a decision was reached. Humanity would be observed but not interfered with. When they were ready, when they reached the stars on their own terms, the galaxy would be waiting. Back on Earth, President Foster stood before the newly formed World Council. Representatives from every nation, every major religion, every significant cultural group were present. It was unwieldy, chaotic, and somehow perfect for humanity. We have 73 years, she announced, sharing the information that had been quietly passed to world leaders. In 73 years, we make official contact with alien civilization. We must be ready. The Chinese premier stood. Ready with weapons? Ready with wisdom, Foster replied. We've seen what pure military might leads to. The Krexhai had 10,000 ships, and it brought them nothing but the threat of extinction. We need to be strong, yes, but strength isn't just about weapons. The Indian Prime Minister spoke next. What do you propose? Education. Every child on Earth needs to learn not just about humanity, but about what's waiting for us out there. Science, yes, but also philosophy, art, music. The Arbiter said we're valuable because we balance creation and destruction. We need to lean into creation. Over the following years, Earth transformed, not into a military fortress, but into a learning civilization. Museums were built celebrating not just human achievement, but human choice. Schools taught conflict resolution alongside mathematics. The arts flourished as humanity tried to understand itself before meeting others. Jake Coleman lived to see the first United Earth space mission launch. Humans from 30 different nations on one ship, exploring their own solar system together. He was old by then, sitting on his porch with his grandchildren. "Grandpa, were you really the first to meet aliens?" his granddaughter asked. "I was one of the first," he said. "But I won't be the last. You might meet them yourself one day." "Will they be scary?" Jake thought about the HFY warriors in his field, about the Arbiter's overwhelming presence. Maybe, but scary doesn't mean evil. Sometimes the scary things are just different, and different can be wonderful if you give it a chance. Lisa Park became the head of Earth's Deep Space Communication Project. She had been in contact with the Arbiter several times over the years, learning, preparing. She knew more than most about what was coming. On her final day before retirement, she received a message from Commander Vextor. It was simple. "We are learning to create instead of destroy. Your example guides us. When you reach the stars, the HFY will be waiting as friends." She smiled and sent back a reply. "We'll bring coffee. You'll love coffee." The years passed. Earth's technology advanced in leaps, driven not by war but by curiosity. The old divisions remained but mattered less. There were still conflicts, still problems, but they were handled differently. The memory of standing together against annihilation had changed humanity's DNA. 50 years after the HFY fleet surrounded Earth, humanity launched its first interstellar probe. It carried a message in 10,000 languages, both human and alien. "We are Earth. We come in peace. We come to learn." The galaxy watched and waited. The experiment continued. The dangerous, chaotic, beautiful humans were growing up. They were still protected, would be until they could protect themselves. But more and more, it looked like that day would come sooner than anyone expected. And in the void between galaxies, the Council of Ancients observed all. They had protected countless species over the eons. Most had disappointed them, becoming stagnant or destructive. But the humans were different. They might actually do it. One ancient communicated to another. They might become what we hoped. It is too early to be CI.